Today we're going to be talking about, before we get into that, I do think that there are 5 areas for personal growth, like 5 areas of life and for personal growth. So through the series, because this is the first episode of what will be a weekly series, crash or fail today. So we're in this for the long haul. So that's part of it, is just tenacity and pushing through. So we're going to do that. Hopefully today is not a flop though. So we'll see. Hopefully you get to learn something. So the 5 areas are your mental, physical, spiritual, career, and relational. So those are 5 areas. My hair is going to drive me nuts. 5 areas of life where you always want to be pushing for growth and striving after things. And they go together. So you have separate things, but they all funnel together. Like if one area of your life, like if you're killing it in your career, but your family life suffers, then you're not thriving as a person. And so you want to be able to like balance that. So yeah. Okay. So on to the good stuff. We'll stop let me spewing and we'll start chatting about John Maxwell's book. So I started at first, if you haven't heard of the app Headway, it's like an app on a smartphone, and it like gives you cliff notes to books. I go through a lot of books and I want to learn. I don't have a lot of spare time, and I want to be intentional about what I listen to and what I learn. And so I go through this, and it's like 20-minute book reviews really. And so it like snapped this whole book into 20 minutes, and I heard it and I loved it. I was on the recumbent bike at the gym because of my boot. I can't ride a bike. So I was on the recumbent bike in the gym and just listening to this, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love it. So as soon as it finished, I hopped over to Audible, because that's how I listen to most of my books, because I'm usually working out or something while I'm listening. And so I got it on Audible and I loved it. And I was like, while I was doing it, I had this idea to do this. I was like, I'm gonna need a paperback so that I can mark it up. And so in 3 days, I got all 3 versions of this. So I would highly suggest you order the book, because there's also exercises and stuff in here. Okay, so I digress. Okay, so the first chapter is on the law of intentionality. It says growth doesn't just happen. And so the first line that it opens up with is, do you have a plan for your personal growth? I would also like to say, it says personal growth in here a lot, and it just sounds kind of cheesy to me, but nonetheless, it's what it is. I don't have a better name for it right now, so I like to use the word goals, but same, but different. Okay, and so it talks about working hard doesn't guarantee success, and hope isn't a strategy. And so instead of just like grinding it out, you need to have a plan. You need to have a clear direction and a plan. And you have to do more than just hope for it. You have to have a strategic strategy. Okay, moving on. How do you get better at what you do? How do you improve your relationships? How do you gain more depth and wisdom as a person? How do you gain insight? How do you overcome obstacles? Work harder, work longer, wait for things to get better. These are not great plans. This is just the preface of the book. So it's setting you up for long term. We got chapters to go here, people. And it said, it occurred to me that if you focus on goals, you may hit goals, but it doesn't guarantee growth. But if you focus on growth, you will always hit your goals. And that kind of made me think. That's why it's highlighted. It's a good one. So just shifting your perspective from just being focused on your goals and seeing it as growth overall. I know for me that helps in like training, because if I am like training, I'm a triathlete, so if I'm training something and I'm like only focused on that workout and like getting that goal done instead of thinking about the growth that's happening, it can be very allows you to focus more on the pain than the positive. And if you're focused on your growth, then you're going to be focused more on your positive. And it's going to help you hit your goals because you love the journey. Okay, and then he continues to go on about what he calls growth gap traps. I botch that one all the time. Can't say it 3 times fast. Can't say it 1 time fast. But growth gap traps. There are 8 of them. And these are the reasons why people either don't start or wait, or they're just too scared, or it's just obstacles that they have to overcome that either slow down their process or keeps them from even starting it. Okay, so the first one is the assumption gap. I assume that I will automatically grow. Now, this is true when you're young. You're born, you learn to walk. Automatically happens. When you go into elementary school or into school, you automatically grow. When you get into high school and go through more transitions, you automatically grow. If you go to college or into career, you're forced to grow into that. But let's say now we're in our 30s. I don't know who that is. Who's that old here? But if we get into our 30s or 40s or whatnot, and we are no longer taking intentional steps to grow, we will no longer grow because there's nothing that forces us to, unless you make huge changes. Like some people, bless them, they love their jobs, or some of them don't, and they pick a career and they stay in it for 40 years. They do the same thing for 40 years. Congratulations. I haven't been able to stay in one place that long, much less I haven't been alive that long, but they are no longer forced to grow. So if you're no longer forced to grow, you either intentionally do it or you don't grow at all. So Bruce Springsteen commented, "A time comes when you need to stop waiting for the man you want to become and start being the man you want to be. No one improves by accident." So again, focusing down and figuring out who you want to be and then intentionally becoming that. So that is the assumption gap, that you continue to grow. Not true. We don't. All right. Gap number 2, the knowledge gap. I don't know how to grow. So if you are clear on what you want to do, the world will respond to clarity. And one of my favorite sayings that may irritate people or it may not is clarity is kindness. Because sometimes people don't want to be mean or they don't want to say certain things because it just comes off wrong, but they are unclear on what they're saying and unclear on what they mean. Clarity is kindness. If you can communicate very clearly, then that helps. It's the same way with your goals. Clarity is kindness. If you know what you're doing and where you're headed, the world will respond. Many people will only learn from school of the hard knocks. So I think it's awesome that we can learn from the people ahead of us. We do not have to go through all the struggles that everybody else went through because they went through them. So study from those. You decide where you need or want to grow. You choose what you will learn, and you follow through with discipline and grow at the pace you set. So these are all choices that you willingly make. You get to pick what you want, where you want it, when you want it, and how fast you get to get there. Kind of. It is a long game. I will say that. It does not go as fast as you want it to. I am in the beginning stages of a long struggle as buying a gem. I mean, obviously, I'm into it because I have bought the gem, but it's going to be growing pains for a long time. I have many battles to overcome. Some I don't even know about yet. And the more I grow, the more I'll have battles. It's a great fun thing, but it's awesome and it's a blessing. So don't let me complain. 5 areas that we can look at and try and focus on is attitude, goals, discipline, measurement, and consistency. And one thing that I want to say is the difference between a dream and a goal is measurements and mapping. So if you have a dream and you want it to become a goal, you break it down into steps and you like measurable, actionable steps, and then you just run it down, like I said earlier. Okay, number 3, the timing gap. It's not the right time to begin. So down here it talks about the law of diminishing intent, which says the longer you wait to do something you should do now, the greater the odds are that you'll never actually do it. It's pretty intense. So one of the things, I grew up cliff jumping. There's this spot back in Georgia we used to go all the time. And anybody who does scary things knows you can't stare at it. You can't like stand there and wait. And so that's one of the things that we always learned as a kid is if you get up there and you pause and you stand there and you stare at it, you're not going to jump. So you have to have your intentions clear when you're headed that direction, and when you get there, you have to do it. So I fully believe in that law. Professor named Leo says, a life lived for tomorrow will always be a day away from being realized. Then Maxwell continues to say, the reality is that you will never get much done unless you go ahead and do it before you're ready. And it's such a scary thing to start things before you think you're ready. But if there's anything that I've learned in this past 6 months of diving into business and like being able to hang out and know like really successful people, they all say, just do it. If you look like a fool, do it anyways. If you don't know what you're doing, do it anyways. They're like, give it your best effort and go. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Number 4, the mistake gap. I'm afraid of making mistakes. Robert Schuller says, what would you attempt if you knew you wouldn't fail? And then how scared are you to do that? Because you're going to make mistakes. And so just push after it. And then Warren Bennis says, a mistake is simply another way of doing things. Maxwell continues to say that to become intentional about growth, expect to make mistakes every day and welcome them as a sign that you are moving in the right direction. And I believe Maxwell wrote a book based on this thought called Falling Forward. Yeah, it's in here. And so just keep falling forward. It's better than not moving at all. Number 5 is the perfection gap. I have to find the best way before I can start. This one doesn't go into a lot of deepness like it says that. If you think you have to find the best way to start, just like the last few things have stated, like you just gotta start. You just gotta go for it. Take that step. Learn as you go. Morph and get after it. All right. And then the next one is the inspiration gap. I don't feel like doing it. So again, I mentioned earlier, I was a triathlete. I am a triathlete. And one of the people I use this program called TriDot. And there's this girl, her name's Emily James. She is both a coach and a professional triathlete. And one of the things that she says all the time, she has a 20-minute rule. If you don't feel like doing it, do it for 20 minutes. Because we train every day. Our program's 7 days a week. And some days you don't feel like it. Sometimes you just don't want to. But there's a difference between like knowing if your body is like capable of it and if you're good to go, or if you just lack motivation. So she has a 20-minute rule. If you get into it and you're 20 minutes into it and you don't want to do it anymore, then you can stop. But you have to get started and you have to give it a solid effort for 20 minutes. You know what happens most of the time? You're good to go. You get 10, 15 minutes into it and you are solid. So the inspiration gap, when you don't feel like doing it, in here it says just do it, which is fun because this was a thing before Nike coined that term, I believe. It says the whole idea of motivation is a trap. Jerome Bruner says, you're more likely to act yourself into a feeling than feel yourself into an action. So act. Whatever it is you know you should do, just do it. To do that 20-minute rule or however that looks in your life, because it's not always working out, but just send it. Just do it. Okay, so number 7, the comparison gap. Others are better than I am. I feel this one all the time. There's so many people that are better than I am. In everything that I'm doing, in every area of my life, there's someone better than me, with me. And so, you know what you should do? Good. Yeah, learn from them. Don't compete with them. They're your heroes. I have a rule. I always, I want to be the dumbest person in the room. I want to fill myself up. I want to be the least successful. I want to be the dumbest person, the slowest, because they will only make me faster, smarter, more successful. You're a weak person hanging out with strong people, you will become stronger. Just by doing what they do, by existing with them, you become smarter. So I always want to be the dumbest person in the room. I've been doing really well at that lately. I got some banger friends. So don't be intimidated by the comparison gap. Work it to your advantage. I have learned to become comfortable with being out of my comfort zone. I will say that is something that I'm pretty solid at. I learned that when young. I do stuff. This makes me very uncomfortable right now. y'all know how dyslexic I am? You know how hard I studied this to pretty much have it memorized? The now that I brought it up, I'm not going to be able to read. The expectation gap. I thought it would be easier. It's always going to be hard, guys. We do hard things. It's one of the sayings we say. We do hard things. One of the equations that it has in here that I like is it says preparation, growth, plus attitude, plus opportunity, plus action equals luck. So create your own luck. Get after it. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. So if you take a look at where you're at and where you want to go and you're not headed in the right direction, pivot. Okay, so we made it through the growth gaps. Now, making the transition to intentional growth. It says growth compounds and accelerates if you remain intentional about it. 1, ask the big question now. So you want to first have a perspective shift. How long will it take me to do this? And we want to shift that to how far can I go? All right, so there's 3 questions. Where do I want to go in life? What direction do I want to go? And what's the farthest I can imagine going? All right, so we want to think about those and not cap ourselves. 2, do it now. Sense of urgency. The greatest danger that we face in this moment is the idea that we'll make intentional growth a priority later. Further down, it says later is one of those dream killers. One of those countless obstacles we put up to derail our chances of success. The diet that starts tomorrow, the job hunt that happens eventually, the pursuit of the life dream that became someday, combined with other self-imposed roadblocks that lock us onto autopilot. The familiar is easy. The uncharted path is lined with uncertainties. Don't be scared. Which goes straight into point 3 of this. Face the fear factor. Fear of failure, fear of trading security for the unknown, fear of being overextended financially, fear of what others will say or think, fear that success will alienate peers. Sorry guys, I'm having a little trouble speak, which is kind of par for the course. Then it says, we will all have faith. The question you have to ask yourself is, which emotion will I allow to be stronger? Feed your faith and starve your fear. All right, 4, change from accidental to intentional growth. The only then it talks about a rut. Accidental growth will get you into a rut. If you're not intentional, it's easy to stall out and stay in a rut. One of the phrases that caught me, and like everything I told you, I've read or listened to this in 3 different ways. The difference between a rut and a grave is the length. I don't want to stay in a grave. I don't want to stay in a short grave. I want to keep moving, plowing through. All right, and then it has a list of accidental growth and intentional growth. The differences between. I'm going to let y'all do that one on your own, because you need to get the book. It's a great book. Eleanor Roosevelt said, one's philosophy is not best expressed in words. It is expressed in the choices one makes. In the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die. And the choices we make are ultimately our own responsibilities. Growth doesn't happen, not for me, not for you, not for anybody. We have to go after it. All right, and then it has, I'm not going to do this because you need to get the book. At the end of every chapter, it has an assessment and apply it. So the first thing that it has, I will tell you that, is it has the growth traps, and you're supposed to pick the growth traps that you tend to fall under, because the more you know about yourself, the more you can train yourself and grow. I'm a big fan of that. And then I do have one thing highlighted, even though I said I wasn't going to say anything. One of the lines, it says, rework your calendar so you have an appointment with yourself for personal growth every day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. And I think the reason that I highlighted that is because I always tell people, I'm one of those people that will put like my fitness and my health first. I will not have plans with people intentionally if I know I need to get my workout in and stuff like that. And one of the things is that I tell people is I would not stand you up. If we have an appointment, I wouldn't stand you up. So I'm not going to disrespect myself enough to stand myself up. So if I said I'm going to go to the gym and do XYZ, I need to do XYZ because I need to respect myself that much. So I imagine that's what I put on there because that's the way I see putting myself on the calendar, is putting intentional time into myself and respecting myself enough to stay intentional and on schedule with whatever we had planned, because that's how I plan things. That's how I plan things with other people, and that's how I want to plan things with myself. So that is what we have for today. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to comment them. If I don't get to them today, I will most definitely start off next week answering some questions maybe, or if it's better, I'll do it at the end. But want to make sure this is just scratching the surface. I personally love to talk about growth. It's something I've spent a lot of time on, probably since high school. I like to be very intentional in the things that I do and the things that I study. And so it's what I love. So until next week, y'all have a fantastic day. God bless.